Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Carisha Devlin, and I'm co-CEO of Annie's Project, and we're thrilled to have you join us today for In Plain Talk, Crop and Livestock Insurance Risk Management Strategies webinar series. Today's topic is using the Apiculture Rainfall Index insurance product as a risk management tool in U.S. beekeeping operations. And this webinar series is brought to you by Risk Management Agency Award Number RMA 23 CPT 00-13617 and Annie's Project. I'd like to take a few minutes to let you know a little bit more about Annie's Project. Annie's Project is a 501c3 organization, and our mission is to empower women in agriculture to be successful through education, networks, and resources. And although we're a women-centric organization, we are open to anyone who's interested in increasing their knowledge, improving their management skills, and knowing how to mitigate risks through risk management strategies. We are a nationwide program, and we offer both face-to-face and online classes at the state level and at the national level. We also have a variety of podcasts and webinars like this one to help you continue to educate yourself. We're really pleased again to have you join us today. And just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started and introduce our first speaker. If you do have questions, we really encourage you to put them into the Q&A box or the chat box. We will be monitoring that throughout today's webinar, and we'll be sure to pass those questions on to our speaker. So now I'll turn it over to Doris Moe to introduce you to our speaker for today's webinar.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're delighted to have you here. And I'd like to introduce Dr. Brittney Goodrich. She is an assistant professor in the Department of Agricultural and Consumer Economics at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. She grew up in a rural farming community in Iowa where uncertainty in agricultural production and marketing influenced family and friends on a daily basis, consequently leading to her current research interests. Dr. Goodrich obtained a BS in Math and Economics at Iowa State University and a master's and PhD degrees in Agricultural Economics at the University of California, Davis. Her research and extension program focuses on how agricultural producers address risk and uncertainty in their operations, enhancing the long-term sustainability of these industries and enhancing the the sustainability of these industries. A primary topic of interest is the use of contracts between almond growers and beekeepers in the almond pollinator market, where the precariousness of honeybee colony health makes contracting practices important to grower and beekeeper profitability. We've got a real expert on our hands, and we're thrilled to have Brittney with us today. So welcome, Brittney. We appreciate you being here and looking forward to what you have to educate us on.
Thanks, Doris. It's good to be here. Always happy to be talking about beekeeping and profitability in beekeeping here in the US. So we're going to jump in and talk about the Apiculture Rainfall Index insurance product today. So a few of the topics we're going to cover are just generally what is Apiculture Rainfall Index insurance. I'll shorten it to API, just because it's kind of a mouthful to say every time. And how does it work? We'll also cover how API is currently being used in the US by looking at USDA Risk Management Agency summary of business data. And then we'll also explore a couple of different enrollment approaches for the USDA program using the decision tool that's online and available for beekeepers. Okay, so just to give a little context, the Apiculture Rainfall Index Insurance Program is a crop insurance program offered for beekeepers by the USDA RMA It's been available in the contiguous US since about 2018. Prior to that, there were a couple of pilot programs in select states. But the idea behind this insurance is that it is insuring beekeepers against drought-like conditions that would either affect honey production or potentially also your honeybee colony health. Also, if you have a drought-like condition, you might have to end up feeding your honeybee colonies extra sugar syrup than if potentially they were producing actual honey. So there are all the payments from API are meant to offset those increased costs of production or decreased revenues from those drought-like conditions. In 2023, about 3.3 million colonies were enrolled in the apiculture insurance program. For those of you that are follow closely to USDA counts of the number of honeybee colonies in the US, that's actually more honeybee colonies than what USDA has reported that we have in the US. And part of that is probably due to some of these colonies being enrolled in multiple states under multiple policies, because we have our commercial beekeeping and operations in the US often move around to different states throughout the year. So why do beekeepers need apiculture insurance? I will show this. It's somewhat of a crazy graph, but I think it illustrates a pretty good point that this just shows the honey yields in pounds per colony for 3 of the top honey producing states in the US. And it shows the variability in honey production per colony from year to year. And so we know that, every year is different when it comes to the amount of flowers that are out there. And so then consequently, our honey production is going to vary from year to year. So when you have a year where there is a drought-like condition, or there is a drought going on, you're going to have fewer flowers and less honey being produced. So similarly, this shows the same graph for another set of 3 top honey producing states in the US. And again, we can just see that honey production per colony varies from year to year pretty substantially. So this apiculture insurance will actually help you alleviate some of that, differentiation in honey production from year to year when it's due to a lack of rainfall. Similarly, apiculture insurance is also used. We talked about how when there is a lack of rainfall, so when there is a drought, you, instead of producing honey, you may end up having to feed your bees additional sugar syrup or pollen patties or something to keep them fed when there aren't those floral resources around. And so you can see on this chart, this is honey expenditures per honey producing colony as reported by USDA NASS. This is not all not all expenditures, but a subset of them. And you can see that big blue one right in the middle is food. So that's how much beekeepers are actually paying to provide sugar syrup and pollen patties for their colonies from year to year. And so you can see how, again, this might fluctuate, and it's quite a large expenditure, especially for some of these commercial beekeeping operations. And of course, if you keep bees, you know that some years it can be very difficult to keep them alive. And we know that colony loss rates are a big concern, especially over the winter. And those colony loss rates can be heavily influenced by obviously how healthy the bee colonies are, but then if the If there is a drought-like condition, you're going to have to feed your colonies sugar syrup as opposed to having natural forage available, which then has been shown to decrease colony health. And so you can have in some of these drought-like years, not only do you have less honey production, but you also have less healthy colonies that may lead to higher colony loss rates from year to year. So those, again, these fluctuate from year to year depending on weather and weather influences, varroa mite populations, and all sorts of things. So apiculture insurance can help smooth out those beekeeping incomes when honey production is fluctuating from year to year, and colony loss rates and colony health is also fluctuating from year to year. Okay, so getting down to what exactly is apiculture rainfall index insurance. So apiculture insurance is going to be, it's an area-based insurance product. So it's not based directly on any of your honey yields or colony losses. So you're not going to have to report anything to USDA specifically. And so it is an area-based insurance product based on the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, grid system. And so there's these grids everywhere throughout the US that are approximately, here in Illinois, they're approximately 13 miles by 17 miles. They vary by latitude, longitude, so they vary slightly in terms of the specific area that they cover, but they are about, 15 square miles roughly. And so within each of these index, or within each of these grids, there's a rainfall index that's calculated for each of these grids. And so that's going to be, that rainfall index is going to be an average of the 4 closest weather stations. So there might not be within your grid, but there's going to be a weighted average based on distance of the 4 closest weather stations to the grid. So this gives you a look at where or how dispersed these NOAA weather stations are. So, they're not going to be in every single grid within the US, but there's going to be at least 4 that are relatively close by that the rainfall index is based on. So some basics of the API policy is that you're insuring a policy based on the estimated value of a colony, and those estimates are going to vary by county throughout the US. And that's going to be based on some data collected by USDA NASS that is based on 5-year average honey production and prices from USDA NASS that is assigned to each county. And that's how they come up with the initial colony value. And you can adjust that accordingly, and I'll show you that in a minute. But basically, this policy is going to guarantee from 70% to 90% of historical average rainfall. And so they're going to calculate historical average rainfall for whichever grid your colonies are located in, and then you can guarantee from 70 to 90% of that historical average in your grid. One thing that sets API apart from traditional crop insurance is that you actually choose the months during the year that you want to insure. So the policy runs from January to December. There are 11 2-month intervals, and you pick from each of those 11 2-month intervals which ones you want to insure. So there is the county value that's assigned to each grid in each county. That is brought up when you're thinking about enrolling in this insurance. You will get this county-based value or county value for your colonies. And so what you can do is you can customize this to your specific colony by adjusting the productivity factor. So if I give this example here of the colony value for Stutsman County, North Dakota, is $160. If you think your colonies, if you're located in North Dakota and you think your colonies are less valuable than that $160, you can adjust the productivity factor down all the way to 60% of 160, which is $96. Or you can adjust it up if you think your colonies are more productive than that average. And so you can go all the way up to 150% of the county value, or, oh, and I didn't change this from acre to colony. I did one, but not the other, but $240 per colony, not per acre. So, again, another decision, so there's lots of decisions that have to be made for this insurance product. And one of them is also the coverage level. And so that is basically determining what average level of rainfall do you want the payments to kick in. So you can remember, you can guarantee from 70% to 90% of average historical rainfall. The higher percentage means you have a higher likelihood of getting a payout from the insurance. And the subsidy levels are going to vary with coverage level. So you have subsidy levels varying from 51% to 59%. The highest coverage levels are going to receive the lowest percentage subsidy. So you can see over on the right-hand side how those different coverage levels vary with subsidy percentages. And again, so you select which 2-month intervals you want to insure against low rainfall when using these products. And so you basically allocate 100% of your coverage across at least 2 different 2-month intervals. And so what that means is when you place some percent of value into a 2-month interval, that means you're insuring that percent of total policy value against low rainfall during those specific months. And you're not allowed to place all of your insurance in one 2-month interval. You have to place it at least across 2 different 2-month intervals, and you're also not allowed to place it in overlapping intervals. So you can't do May, June, and June, July like is illustrated here. You would have to skip to July, August, maybe. So apiculture insurance is, well, all USDA crop insurance policies are designed to be actuarially fair, which means that over time, the indemnities that are paid out are approximately equal to the premiums that are paid in. So what that means is that intervals with higher rainfall variability, they're going to have a higher likelihood of getting an indemnity payout because your rainfall is varying a lot more from year to year. But that also means they're going to have higher premiums associated with them. And these interval premium, the 2-month interval premiums are going to vary by grid. So I've given an example here for Stutsman, North Dakota. And you can see all of the 11 index intervals and then the premium rates per $100. So you can see in this case, October, November has the highest premium rate of $26 per $100. And so that is going to have the highest variability in rainfall over those, across all of those 2-month intervals. And you can see during June, July that has the lowest premium, which is probably fairly in line with when honey production would happen during North Dakota or in North Dakota. So that's going to have lower rainfall variability. Okay. So moving into how apiculture has been used in the US. So this is all just summarizing what's out there for the USDA Risk Management Agency's summary of business data. You can see over time in 2009, it was introduced as a pilot program, and in 2018 was when it was available first throughout the whole contiguous US. But you can see that it's been steadily increasing over time, and we're now up to over 3 million colonies enrolled in this program in the US. In terms of coverage level, 90% is by far the most popular coverage level. 85% does have some colonies, but you can tell over time everything has trended towards the 90% coverage level. So most beekeepers are choosing that highest coverage level that's available. And in terms of looking at where colonies are enrolled in the apiculture insurance program, you can see I've summarized these by state. And if you're interested and you want to go look at the sort, or I guess the specific map where you can actually figure out what the numbers are, you can scan that QR code and go to that map that's available. But you can see some of the main honey producing states: California, North Dakota, South Dakota, Texas, Florida. Those are going to have more colonies enrolled. Georgia's also in there as well. So those are the states with relatively high enrollment in honey, or in the apiculture insurance program. I see it's popping up that Ruth has raised her hand. I don't know if I can.
Go ahead, Ruth. You can unmute and say something if you like.
I think that was I didn't mean to raise my hand, but I do have a question for you, Brittney.
Yeah.
The number of hives, let's say I'm an amateur hive apiarian, 15, 20 hives, is this a product that I would want to look at?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can, I guess I didn't say that, but thank you for bringing it up. You can enroll, I believe, even one hive if you wanted to. So there's no like minimum number of hives. So you can certainly enroll 15 to 20 hives in this program.
Thank you, Ruth.
Okay. Let's see, moving on. So I generally like to summarize some of this crop insurance stuff as showing what happens in terms of the amount of indemnities that are collected divided by the premiums that producers pay. And so what you can see here is that line at 1 is when indemnities exactly equal the total amount that producers pay in terms of premiums. And below the 1 line means that producers paid in premiums more than they collected in indemnities, and above the line means that they collected more indemnities than paid in. And so you can see with this product, in most years, producers are collecting more in indemnities than they're paying out. And part of the reason behind that is because this is a subsidized program. So you had that, 51 to 59% of the premium is being paid by the government on your behalf when you're participating in this program. which means it's oftentimes a net benefit for producers who are participating. So in terms of selecting 2-month intervals, so this is something that is fairly can be a little bit tricky, and it is complicated because there's so many different intervals, and you'll get recommendations from a crop insurance agent. And so I wanted to go over how beekeepers should maybe think about choosing amongst all of these different intervals. And so what I'm going to do is walk through an example using this Apiculture Rainfall Index decision tool, which is pictured here, and you can find it at the link that is listed above as well. And so one, there's a couple of different, well, there's many different approaches, but two of the main approaches that I think about when thinking about this insurance program is you can think about this purely from a profit maximization approach, where a producer would enroll in intervals with the highest rainfall variability. And those are going to be the most likely to pay an indemnity because of the subsidies. And so those, the problem that I see with this strategy is that those indemnities are likely to be unrelated to honey production or bee health. In the example that we saw before, it was October, November was the most variable month. And so if you have a lack of rain in October, November in general, that's not really going to have much of an impact on your beekeeping operation. So the other approach is to take the risk management approach, where you're enrolling in intervals when a lack of rainfall will have the most impact on honey production. And these, because of the fact that you're thinking about when the lack of rainfall is going to be important, these indemnities should actually be related to your honey production and bee health. So if you want this to act as a risk management strategy, you'd want to take the risk management approach. So that's ultimately which intervals you're going to enroll in ultimately is going to depend on a lot of different factors, one of them being your kind of individual preferences for risk. So what I'm going to do is compare these two approaches for, just a hypothetical operation in North Dakota. So I've approximated the honey production season in North Dakota by saying, okay, it's probably April, May, June, July, August, September that are going to be the months that are going to have the most impact on honey production in that area. And so I've spread my coverage across those important months. So in this area, the highest variable rainfall intervals were January, February, March, April, and October, November. So that for the profit maximization approach, I've placed allocated my coverage across those highly variable intervals. And so you can, basically what I did was go to the Apiculture Rainfall Index insurance decision tool, and I plug both of these strategies in, and you can, it provides you with the data on historical indemnities for both of these strategies, so you can compare what happens when you use these strategies based on that historical data. So when you first go to the decision tool, this is the screen that you're going to get. You're going to have to find wherever your operation is located and find your corresponding grid ID. Once you have your grid ID, then you can go to the decision support tool, and you can see the grid information comes up at the top. And so then you have to make a lot of your different selections. You're going to have to decide what coverage level you're looking at. You're going to put in your productivity factor. your insurable interest in terms of if you co-own an operation, maybe your insurable interest would only be 50%. You put in your number of insured colonies, and you can even choose the sample year that you're looking at. And then on the right-hand side is where you put in your, you allocate your coverage across the different intervals. So once you've entered all of that information, you can go over and hit calculate, and it'll bring up something that looks like this. And so here I've put in 90% coverage level at 100% productivity factor. I just insured one colony because it's easier for illustration purposes. And then I've allocated my percents of value over those months that are going to manage my risk of low honey production and low bee health if rainfall is below the historical average. So then you can see it gives you a lot of different information in terms of the policy protection per unit. These are the premium values per $100 for each of the intervals. It gives you the total premium paid, the amount of subsidy that's being paid on your behalf, and then the producer premium. And for any years any year, I believe I took this screenshot in 2024 because this was for a different beekeeping presentation that I did at the end of last year. So you can see there's no index values posted in there for September through December. They may be posted now, but for any earlier years, you can find the actual index value that was calculated for that grid in that year. And so you can see, if you had selected the January, February 2-month interval, because the index value is 48 and that's less than 90, you would have collected an indemnity. In the case of all of our selected months, we did have in June, July, the rainfall index was 73, which was below 90. So you would actually have an indemnity collected in that month. Okay, so the way that I go about doing the kind of comparing and contrasting these different analyses is you can actually go to the second tab, which says graph. And as long as you select, well, you can look at the index values too, but you can also select the estimated indemnities and click the chart view, and it will show you for all of the years going back to, I think, 1940s, 1970. It will show you if you had put in a specific strategy, what would be the estimated indemnities that you would collect from that strategy. So, and it looks like this one I didn't match up these screenshots very well because this is actually looking at the profit maximization. So you can see January, February, March, April, and October, November are the ones where there are estimated indemnities, and that's because it's looking at the profit maximization approach. So basically when you do that, you can export this chart to Microsoft Excel, and then you can add up what's actually happened over time. And so you can see if we're looking at average indemnities, I only did from 1987 to 2023. I believe that's because that's the only data those are the years when honey production was available for North Dakota. You have an average indemnity of $28 per colony for the profit maximization approach, and then an average indemnity of $16 per colony for the risk management approach. So as one would expect, the profit maximization approach paid out more. However, it also costs more as well. So you can look at the policy premium, subtract out the subsidy, and the producer premium that you pay for profit maximization is $18 a colony versus $10 a colony for the risk management strategy. So net, that means that on average, you would have collected net $10 per colony from profit maximization approach compared to $6 per colony for the risk management approach. The one caveat with this is, of course, that the risk management approach is more likely to be related to your actual honey yields and your colony health. And so I did a correlation coefficient between the indemnity and this is just the North Dakota average honey yield. So not ideal. Maybe a county level yield would be a little more correlated, but regardless, you can see that this has a correlation coefficient of 0.26, which is more correlated with honey yields than the profit maximization, which is very uncorrelated. So what this means is that when you're getting a payment from the risk management policy, you are more likely to have lower honey yields in that year. So you're basically offsetting those lower yields with your apiculture policy, whereas your profit maximization approach is unrelated to honey yields. So in terms of apiculture insurance enrollment, you have to enroll in this product through a certified crop insurance agent. So you can find a certified crop insurance agent locator on USDA's website. And the enrollment deadline for 2025 has already passed, but you can enroll before December 1st, 2025 for the 2026 year. And then it's important to note that the premium's not due until later on in 2026. So if you did have any indemnities, those would be subtracted out from your premium. So then you wouldn't have to pay that premium right up front. So just a couple of closing thoughts that, this is a product that can be used for risk management purposes by beekeepers, small beekeepers, large beekeepers, all of the above. And the policies, what I like about this program is that the policies are really flexible, so you can customize it to your specific beekeeping system. It is important to note that you do influence the amount of risk protection that this product provides by the choice of those 2-month intervals. So you can actually use that profit maximization approach that may not minimize your risk, but it might provide you with indemnities, maybe just not in the year that you might really need them. And there are other government programs for beekeepers to look into, especially like new and beginning beekeepers that are maybe looking to expand their operation. So there's farm loan programs through the Farm Service Agency. There's also disaster assistance programs, emergency assistant for livestock, honeybees, and farm-raised fish, otherwise known as ELAP, which provides payments for beekeepers if you have really high mortality rates in a given year. So that's something to look at that would be offered through your local FSA agency. So with that, that's all I have. So happy to take any questions or yeah.
So Brittney, you showed the tool that RMA has for finding an agent. Are there a lot of agents that offer this kind of insurance? Are they kind of focused in particular parts of the country? You know, if you're a smaller beekeeper and you're in, let's say, Georgia, and and there's not a lot of other beekeepers around you, are you going to be able to find somebody that is going to be able to provide you with this insurance?
Yeah, so I guess I assume that the crop insurance agents are required, the USDA certified ones are required to offer this if a beekeeper is interested. So as long as they go to a certified crop insurance agent, I think they should, the crop insurance agent should, first of all, want to provide them with that insurance because they're being paid, but I think they would be required to. But if not, there's definitely programs available nationwide, like crop insurance agents that will provide this insurance product. So they might not, like in your example, be located right next to you in Georgia. But there are, other agencies or other crop insurance agents probably in one of the higher beekeeping or larger beekeeping states that might offer them, like going, to North Dakota or to California or Texas or Florida. So you should be able to find someone that would offer you this product.
Okay, because presumably you would want somebody with some knowledge of beekeeping, or that insurance and what goes on with pollen, the pollinators and things like that, to assist you in making some decisions on, or to assist
Yeah.
in understanding what the insurance will do.
Yeah. No, and that's a good point. And I didn't say this before, but so there is an almost identical product available, which I think you guys had talks on at earlier sessions, the Pasture Rangeland and Forage Rainfall Index Insurance Program. That's also a program that's available nationwide and is now the highest enrollment crop insurance program in terms of acreage in the US. So while your crop insurance agent might not be super familiar with beekeeping, they're more than likely going to know about this other pasture, rangeland, and forage insurance product. And so then they can provide advice on the specific rainfall index insurance product. So you might have to do some sort of patchwork to try and figure out kind of what's the best strategy in your specific location. But you should be able to piece that together through crop insurance in your area or maybe beekeeping specific crop insurance agents in other areas.
Okay. Are there other questions?
It's a lot to take in. These insurance products, the newer ones are they're advantageous because they are flexible, but then they're very complicated because you have so many different choices. So sometimes it's kind of overwhelming to try and figure these out.
Well, I think there's a certain amount of truth to any of the insurances being a little bit daunting for people when you look at some of these applications and you're presented with 18 pages of things that have to be filled out, of course, alongside your agent, but still you look at that and there's a lot of fine print. And so it's just making sure. I think it's natural for us to all get a little nervous when there's a lot of fine print and lots of pages. It's just wanting to make sure that we're understanding what we're signing up for, how that works, and what happens if I have a loss, kind of thing, and how all of that translates. So it's I think insurance just tends to be kind of a daunting area in the first place,
Yes.
and then when you start diving a little deeper in, there is a lot to take in.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, for those of you that have an interest in diving deeper into insurance, we are offering a course, and you can see Dr. Goodrich again if you so desire. We'll be having a course actually that starts next Tuesday. Or excuse me, not next Tuesday, this Tuesday, tomorrow, sorry. It is already March. And you can sign up for that course. If you go to anniesproject.org, you can sign up for the course. We are recording the sessions, so those recordings will only be available for people that register for the course. But a good way to get further introduced into crop insurance, and especially specialty crop insurance, we'll be taking that free course, and that will have experts in different areas along with activities. So we hope that you'll go to anniesproject.org to check that course out, and that might be something that'll help make things a little less daunting for you. So with that, Dr. Goodrich, and I don't see any additional questions. Any final words for us?
I don't think so. I'm happy to, answer any follow-up questions if folks take some time to process it and want to reach out to me via email. I'm happy to do that as well. So.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, and we really appreciate it. And also for the participants, we'd appreciate, we have a very short survey at the end of today's session. We'd appreciate your feedback. Thank you again, Dr. Goodrich, and thank you everyone for participating. And this will also be featured on our YouTube channel. It's probably sometime next week. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.